Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, Content Specialist for the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship, which is part of the School of Politics, Security, and International Affairs at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Welcome to our Middle School Civics Highlights series. We'll be focusing on benchmark 1.8, in which we will explain the purpose of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. In part 3, we will be focusing on the intention of the phrase, "we the people," in the preamble of the U.S. Constitution. So we're going to be recognizing that the intention of the phrase, "we the people," means that government depends on the people for its power, and the government exists to serve the people. So that means that the government relies on the people not only to have the powers that it has, but also to serve the people. So we'll be looking at the intention of that one phrase, those 3 words, "we the people," and also summarize the meaning of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. So let's look at this phrase, "we the people." As I mentioned a moment ago, we the people means that the people grant the powers to the government. Notice the placement of "we the people" in the preamble. "We the people" does not appear at the end of the preamble or someplace else. Rather, this is how the preamble begins, "we the people." What this means then is that not only does "we the people" begin the entire preamble, but it also begins the entire U.S. Constitution. And then over the next 200 plus years, all the amendments that have been added to it. Ultimately, the source of power comes from "we the people." Thus, the people are granting their powers to government. The creators of the U.S. government were, by definition, an elite group, right? They were the ones who had more money and more power, and they understood that they were creating a nation where the majority of the people were not elites, but they were common people. People who had less money, less privilege, less power, less land, less property. And most of the people living in the United States at the time were what might be classified as common people compared with elites. Elites sort of were the top of the pyramid. There were fewer of them, but they were at the top. They were above the common people. This majority's approval was necessary, the majority of the common people. Their approval was necessary for ratification. One way to gain the approval of the common people was to confirm that the people were forming the government and it was not being handed down by a god or a king. Because if that government was being handed down by a king, one would assume that it would be given to the elites. So the phrase "we the people" means everybody, regardless of their social or economic status. It's all of us. It's everyone. So let's summarize the meaning of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. 1, it is from the people that the government derives its powers and not the other way around. In practice, the most effective way for the people to grant their power to the government is through elections, because the people choose who's going to govern them. And by choosing who's going to govern them and being well informed about the political and policy stances of those people, then the people give the power to the government with an expectation about how that government will govern. We, the people, we choose the government through direct and indirect means, meaning we choose the elected officials who appoint the appointed officials, and ultimately the power is derived from the people. Thank you for joining me for Middle School Civics Highlights. Do you still have questions? Please contact us using the information that appears on the screen. Till next time, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine. Thank you for joining me.